Hello, my name's Levi, and I'm a complete beginner to reading philosophy, and I just got finished reading Plato's Apology, a dialogue by Socrates. I wanted to kind of make this video and just talk about my thoughts and how I analyze things and what I thought about what Plato said. So if you're not familiar with Apology, it's essentially Plato's recounting of Socrates' trial. It's not so much his trial as a speech or what he says at his trial to his accusers. And it's kind of him detailing like how he came to where he is and why he did what he did. Right off the bat, before I even actually get into like how I feel about things, I was very surprised by how readable this is. I assume that's probably based on how it was translated, but it was surprisingly very easy to read comparatively to some other books that I've read that have even been written more recently. For instance, right now I'm also reading Moby Dick, and I would say that book is significantly more verbose than this was. I actually think it was put rather simply in a lot of times, so that anyone could understand it. And I think he even makes note of that and says that he is going to talk just off the cuff. He's not going to formulate his thoughts. He's just going to say how it is because he believes that the truth will like set him free in a sense, because he believes that he is being falsely accused and also falsely executed. It's just history, but I mean, Socrates, he gets put on trial for heresy and he's detailing why he's not a heretic. Overall, really what I wanted to get into is just kind of like go through some of my marginalia that I wrote in this book or in this dialogue and go through what I thought and why I thought it. I should also say that I'm, like I said, a complete beginner to reading philosophy. It's a rather intimidating genre to me as a whole, but I did enjoy reading this and I want to dip my toes in further. But I should preface this by saying that how I personally analyze this work is by no means definite. And this is a work that's been around for over 2,000 years, so there's, I'm sure, plenty of very scholarly people who have broken this down. In fact, I want to give the opposite point of view of someone who has literally zero philosophical experience and is just trying to figure out what this means from my point of view as a normal everyday 21st centuryan. So we start off with Socrates basically begging to be allowed to speak in front of his accusers at what I assume to be his trial. He breaks his accusers out into two different parts and says that he has old accusers and he has new accusers. Since he's lived a relatively long life, he's around 70 at this point in time. He has people that have been accusing him of things for years, and he has the new people who I believe are the people who are actually bringing him to this trial. I also thought that there's a lot of actually just very poetic wording to this. I'm not sure, I know this is like recorded by Plato and not by Socrates himself. I don't know when historically this was recorded. This was like an interpretation of what Socrates said, or this is like actually like a transcript, but I'm going to treat it as a transcript because that's what I understand it to be. But like he had some beautiful things he said, like, and therefore I must simply fight with shadows in my own defense. He's talking about how his accusers that have been around for so long won't show their face in this trial. He is being accused, but his accuser is not there to accuse him, and therefore he must fight with shadows because no one can refute what he's saying. It doesn't matter what he says because the person who's actually accusing him of whatever they're accusing him of is not there to be refuted. They basically first accuse him that he doesn't believe in God, or he's a student of natural philosophy, as he put it, and I looked that up when I was reading it and wrote down that natural philosophy is examining the world through the lens of no supernatural explanations. So I believe that would just mean that he's like atheist, and that comes up later. So it seems like they're accusing him of just not believing in gods. Then we get introduced to the idea that he was deemed the most wise man in all of Greece by these oracles, and he went on this quest to essentially talk to all these different sects of people and figure out if there was someone wiser than him. What he really stumbles upon is that like what he thinks is the biggest detriment to wisdom is the idea that you are wise, that you believe you're smart and that you're wise. He claims that he is not wise, therefore he is wise, is kind of the idea of what his own wisdom is. And also just that he's been esteemed as wise by the people around him. He goes to talk to all these different sects, like I said, of people, and he goes to talk to the poets, and there's this one little part that I really liked when he talks about the poets. He says, they are like diviners or soothsayers who also say many fine things but do not understand the meaning of them. I believe he alludes to the fact that like these poets can write such beautiful works but they don't even understand them themselves, and that in itself is very poetic, which is something that I thought was very enjoyable on the read and very thought-provoking. He talks to the artisans as well, and they think that they know more than they actually do, and therefore he disqualifies them from being wise, or wiser than him, I should say. And then he goes into this idea that wisdom is worth nothing. It struck me as kind of pessimistic view, but maybe you would consider it realist. I don't really know what it would be considered in this context. So the edition that I have, I should show, it has like these little blurbs right here, and then it has the actual passages, I would say. And I think that the little blurbs right here is Plato's writing. I could be wrong on that, but that was how I kind of understood it. Plato's little footnotes inside of writing this transcript of what happened with Socrates. And it seems to be like the first thing that he kind of argues with this second class of accusers is this idea that he's corrupting the youth. He basically asks the dude who's persecuting him, would you say that you're corrupting the youth? Would you say everyone here is corrupting the youth? But basically you're claiming that I'm the only person in Greece who's corrupting the youth. And he says, like, if we think about that in terms of animals, like a horse, people have a certain number of people who are caretaking for them and stuff like that, but not everyone cares for this animal. There's only a small group of people that care for this animal, as opposed, like, it's the inverse whenever we think about it in nature is what he's claiming from what I understood. I don't entirely understand the philosophical implications of that, but it was an interesting little, like, fallacy. That seems like to be what a lot of this apology is the work apology. I also noted that one thing that I found very interesting about the fact that it's called apology is that I don't think he ever really blatantly apologizes in this. In fact, I think he takes the opposite stance. Instead, he tells you why he's innocent, and he's very firm in why he did what he did. He believes, you can tell he believed just from reading this, that what he did was right. And then another thing that his accuser accuses of him is, once again, not believing in God. And this part was this is probably one of the more confusing I shouldn't say chapters, but portions to me. It seems like he catches the dude in some type of fallacy in regards to, like, him believing in God. The accusation is based on the fact that he doesn't believe in God, but he proves away that he does believe in God. And then so he's like, since I do believe in God, therefore I don't believe, like, your accusation is false because it's claiming that it's based on the fact that I don't believe in God. That was a lot to say. That confused me a little bit, I won't lie. And if you have read this work and you understand that passage a bit more, I would love to hear what you think about that. And then he goes into this idea that, like, he shouldn't opine, he shouldn't, like, be in front of the council and, like, be sorrowful and disgrace himself, because his disgrace is worse than death itself, is essentially what he claims. He claims that he should be true to himself, and he is true from what I can read throughout the rest of this work. I'm gonna stop going through plot by plot, and I really think that I don't fully grasp everything that was put in this work. I'm not gonna lie to you and say that I do, but from what I got out of it, it was almost about, like, him being sure that what he did was right. And it was him justifying what he did. I wouldn't even say justifying, it was telling you why he did it. I mean, he was trying to convince as to why he did what he did, but it wasn't in a manner that he was, like, trying to change the judge's mind. In fact, he's, like, very accepting of the fact that he is being executed. And he has a lot of really interesting logical arguments in there that I think is very common with this type of philosophy. I could be wrong. Like I said, I'm not familiar really with it. I mean, I've heard of Socrates and Plato and these Aristotle and these type of Greek philosophers. I don't really know what their philosophy is built upon. He also goes on record saying he's not going to change his behavior. So if they're planning to kill him over what he's done, like truly done, then they should just kill him, essentially. And that's what they do. It's hard for me to really know how to examine a work like this through a good philosophical lens, but I enjoyed the work nonetheless. I gave the work 3.5 stars. I liked it, and I would read it again. I would love to hear what you think about Apology. I'm going to continue working my way through some of these other dialogues of Socrates, and that, like I said, I want to dip my toe in more philosophy, but it is a little overwhelming. Even this little 30-page read was pretty overwhelming. At times it was like, what am I understanding? Am I getting what I need to get out of this? And maybe I'm looking for more profoundness than there needs to be, but I did learn a lot historically, I'd say, about how, I shouldn't say a lot historically, but I didn't know about the trial of Socrates. I think there's another dialogue in here that's also about that, and that whole historical event is very interesting to me. I think the idea of being persecuted as, like, a heretic is very interesting, especially for someone like this, who is, like, treated and beloved, from what I understand, at least for a portion of his life, and almost esteemed in a way. There's probably a lot to unpack in this work that I'm missing, so if you've read the work or you have any thoughts on things that I missed, I would love to hear them. I really do want to understand this. I just think that I'm not fully getting everything there, and I think that's okay. I don't think I need to get everything on this first read, because I think it's a work that I probably will return to at some point. Thanks for watching, and subscribe if you made it this far.